when those powers that have influence, whenever they want, they turn Africa into perpetrators.
We are supposed to move as Africans. Africa should move on their own.
Africa belongs to our sons and daughters alive today and those yet to be born.
It's an amazing time to be alive. People say stuff like, oh, I miss the good old days. The good old days were terrible. We've got amazing stuff. We've got Wi-Fi.
Fala, meu camarada, beleza?
E aí, meu camarada, como é que tá? Retornado de viagem, cá estou. 100% não, mas estou na área.
Completamente moído, né?
Nossa Senhora.
Para quem não sabe, o Davidson estava na Argentina e tá voltou essa madrugada aí para a gente fazer essa live. E hoje a gente tem um convidado muito maneiro, Davidson, muito maneiro mesmo. Um pessoal jovem que está fazendo um trabalho sensacional na África. E sem mais delongas, without further ado, with everybody, Mr. Mika Chavala.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm very excited for this conversation.
Habari Mika, asante sana na karibu.
Asante sana. Naendelea vizuri. Your Swahili is really good. Hakuna matata.
That's as far as I go.
And that's all we have.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Hakuna Matata, I think most everybody knows as well.
Oh yeah,
absolutely,
sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how are you doing, Mika? Thank you very much for sharing a little bit of your time with us. I think we are trying to build the same thing all together, the same word for everybody. And I've been following your work for about a year and a half. When everything happened here in Europe, I live in Italy. Okay, so I'm sorry, let me introduce ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
My name is Marcelo Vilaça, and this up here is Davidson Detman. We are both Brazilians. I live in Italy. Davidson lives in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And so all these things started happening here in Europe last year, and I started to get very curious about things because, we just have to do the everyday life, go to work, have fun, take care of family, take care of friends, all those things. But that started to open my mind to new things, to understand what was going on. And by understanding what was going on, I started to search for perspectives. And I realized that at some point during my researches, I realized how important the African continent is for our last century and for our next century.
How central it is, right?
Exactly. And this is one thing that we had recently a chat with a great friend of ours in Brazil, who is a commander, a Navy commander. And we mentioned this to him. We actually believe that the big transformation will come from African youth, not from Latin American. Well, at least first from Africa.
Yes, it will start over there.
And when I discovered, about Professor Lumumba, then I started searching more material about Professor Lumumba, and then I discovered your channel, and I really appreciated to see young people, because I believe you are much younger than me and Davidson. To see young people.
What are you guys? I'd love to know how old are you?
We are on our 40s.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So seeing the young people doing a great job like you are doing, like others are doing, it inspired us. it also inspired us to start this channel, to start whatever we could do. We are people that we have a little bit of knowledge, not too much, but we try to bring this. So I already talked too much. I talk too much, I'm sorry. I would like to understand from you, that's the first question I asked every guest we have. What are your expectations on this conversation?
Wow, what I expect is as well to learn, because if you stop learning, you stop growing. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons why I accepted to have this conversation is because every time when I have an opportunity to talk to non-African descendants, I see it as a good opportunity for me to shed a little bit of light of what I know as an African to non-Africans. So, for me, I don't really care about the numbers. I don't really care who is that, but anytime when I have this opportunity to share what I know with other people, I take that opportunity with everything I have in my heart. So what I expect is, to just have a nice conversation. I can get to learn from you guys, and you guys as well can get to learn from me. And hopefully at the end of the day, we'll be able to shed some light to some of your audience who'll be watching this. And hopefully we'll get a time as well to upload this in our channel, at least to share, to shed some light to our audience as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. So first of all, when I wrote you, I think I explained that we are not reporters, we are not the press, we are just people doing this because the press does not do for us.
Yeah.
And so this is not an interview. This is a conversation. So you can be free to ask us anything you want, to have perspective, to bring perspective also for your, the title of the video is Perspective, like we had the other day with Nina Byzantina, who is a Russian living in Canada. And the idea is to bring these multiple perceptions and perspectives so people can understand that history and society is not a monolith. That I think I could get 10, maybe 20 African experts from Brazil to talk with us in Portuguese, but you are there, you are living there, you see what's going on there. You can share much more information than some Brazilian looking at Africa with a Brazilian eye from Brazil. And I think this is very important. So that's very nice. I think you got the point of the conversation. If I may start just asking a couple of questions, because I am also curious about many things. How could you describe the everyday life in Tanzania? Because if I got it right, you live in Tanzania, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Which, by the way, me and my wife we're planning to visit this year. We end up in Egypt.
That's amazing. That's amazing. But
So
you did not get to come to Tanzania, right?
No, we end up in Egypt. It was cheaper.
I see. Yeah. All right.
We have to concern about that as well.
Yeah.
So how is the everyday life for you? For example, you go to work, of course. You go. I believe you went to a college or higher education. You plan things. How is the everyday life in Tanzania? Because of course, talking about Africa is a big continent. Even me talking about Brazil, you're gonna hear me talking about Rio de Janeiro, and. But we would like to understand the dynamics, because we see a lot of news, the terrorist groups, which is a very sad thing. How does the everyday life, I don't know, how is it in Tanzania about this? I would like to understand more about this.
If I may, Marcelo.
Sure.
Our focus in our channel is to bring to Brazilians other point of views and other understandings, because our media is very poor in this stuff. So they take a place like Africa that is huge. There is all kind of cultures and histories and languages and all stuff, and they pack it in a small box. Africa, you know. So the Brazilians have a little idea. The Brazilians get very offended when the Americans don't know the Brazilian capital, but they have no idea about the African capitals. You know what I mean? So it's more or less what we would like to do here, to give the Brazilians this perspective of how rich and how huge Africa is. Yeah. And Brazil is there is a lot of African descendants in Brazil. Yeah. And they also know very little of their heritage, you know. So that's more or less what we would like to know about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, to be honest, Tanzania, where I'm living right now, and so many other African countries, because I work with so many people from different African countries, and also had an opportunity to visit some of them. Life is basically like anywhere else. I mean, you've been to Egypt, and if I ask you how is life in Egypt, you'll tell me that, okay, in Egypt, there are different classes of people. There are people who are living really quality good life because they have money and all this stuff, and then you have another middle income group that they're living just like ordinary life, but they have good life. And also you have a lower income people who maybe perhaps per day they might have like 2 meals a day, you know, some of them to a little bit too extreme, 1 meal a day. You might tell me like that, you know, about Egypt. Even I believe even in Brazil, even when you go to countries like US as well, you'll find even all these so-called developed countries, you'll find all these 3 different groups of people. And that's how it is in Tanzania as well. Like you'll go some places where people, they have a lot of money. Most of them are leaders and business people, right? They always have a lot of money. You can imagine what is really going on, you know, behind the scene, why they have money. And that's the easiest way of making money in Africa. Just become a leader and you'll make money. And also you'll find people that are living in the middle income, people like me that, you know, I'm living just my ordinary life. You know, I have meal to eat every single day and all that kind of stuff. And you find the last group that most of them, but here's the funny thing. Most of these people, we imagine they're living in the village, rural areas, but the way that we define better lives and low quality of lives, it's very different from urban areas. Because in rural areas, they might not have paper money, but these people, they do agriculture. They actually have food. They do like livestock. They have animals. They take care of them, and they always have something to eat. But they just live kind of life. It's kind of like old times. They don't really have paper money, but they have resources. So they live by that. Exactly. So most of medias or NGOs, when they come to Africa, they actually go to rural areas to take pictures of all these different, you know, traditions and culture and customs in Africa. Because some of the traditions here in Africa, some of them, they don't wear shoes. Not because they cannot have shoes, but because that is the tradition. It's their tradition. That's how they live. Some of them, they eat raw meat. They don't even cook meat. They eat raw meat and they eat blood. For example, there's this one tribe called Maasai. They eat blood. That is the culture here in Tanzania, and that's one tribe. But when they come, they film that. Exactly, yeah. But when they come, they film that and they show that, oh, this is how people live here in Tanzania. They only show that one side of the coin. But the matter of fact, when you come here and you go in the rural areas, you find people, actually, they're very rich, not with money, but with resources. You find people owning like 100 cows, right? You'll find these old men having like 100 acres of land, right? Which if you translate it into money, it's a whole lot of money, you know? You'll find every single person here in Africa, actually, they're owning their own houses. These houses might be beautiful houses, or they might be just a little like old tradition types of houses, but they have house, they have land, right? They have all these like livestock and everything. right? So that's how life it is in Africa. And the more I go to village, because even where I was born, it's not really a village, but the life is kind of like that. It's not really like the capital. It's not really like the place I'm living right now in the city, but it's somewhere like in the rural areas. But people are just living very decent kind of life. Like I remember my food. We never used to buy food. We always just, my mom, he always just, she always, we always just, did agriculture a little bit outside of the house. So we had vegetables, we had some maize, we have chicken, sometimes we just lay down some chicken and have the meat. That's kind of life we're living and we were satisfied. So that's kind of life a lot of places in Africa people are living. But also I cannot ignore that there's some places that are a little bit extreme, especially in the places where they have a shortage of rain. You'll find out that there's a shortage of food, some of the rural areas. So for that, I cannot also deny that we have a certain group of people who are living really a low quality of life that they cannot afford like 3 meals a day. We have that, but it's not that a lot. You see this research a lot of time. They say, okay, these village people are living under $1 a day, like they're living below $1 a day. But when you think about it, if you're living in the United States, you will feel really sad. And oh my goodness, these people, they don't even have $1 a day. But these people are talking about, they have maize, they have cattle, they have their own farm, they're digging their food. So they're actually living a life. But based on Western standard, it kind of seems like they're not really living a life. So that's how it is.
Yeah, that's you made some very interesting points there. Also about the blood meal, for example. We have some meals made from blood in Brazil, for example, that with the blood of the goat.
Oh,
It's kind of a jelly. It's kind of a jelly made from brain and blood. It's so if you go to England, me neither. If you go to England, for example, they have the black sausage. That's basically boiled blood.
wow.
Here in Italy, they have a saying that from the pig you do not throw anything away.
Wow.
I mean, there is I will send you then. There is an Italian girl. She's from Africa. She's an immigrant from Africa. I believe she's an immigrant. I don't know which country, but she does Instagram showing how ridiculous the Western society sounds like. I sent you that. How ridiculous the Western society sounds like when you put what they say. So she's an African and she pretends to be a Western or an European visiting Africa, but inside Italy. So, for example, she goes to a place where people are eating their sandwich with the hand, sitting on the floor, and she goes like, "Oh, these people, poor people, they don't have plates. They eat with their hands. They are eating on the floor." And so you see this hypocrisy, this kind of hypocrisy that happens when Westerns go to, let's say, poorer countries. And all that to say, look, I asked that not entirely by curiosity, but I think it's important to bring this empathy for the Brazilians, and hopefully you're going to bring the empathy for the Africans, for us Brazilians. And sometimes that's exactly what you say. What the media shows is, the very, very, very poor from a tribe in the middle of the Sahara Desert or whatever.
In the middle of a dry season, probably. Right, so there is no rain, so they are in poor situation because of that fact. Let's go there and spread some misery to the world. Let's say let's show how the Africans are miserable.
Yeah, and we in Brazil, we have misery as well. It's a sad truth, but we do have a lot of misery. And sometimes I hear friends of mine saying, like, too bad this misery in Africa. I just look at them and say, come on, Jade, look around.
We're Brazilians.
Look around you. Just
over here in Brazil, we have a big region of the country, the northeast region, that is a semi-arid region. So they are very sensitive to weather, to climate and rain and this kind of situation. And you are describing these tribes and these regions in Africa, and I was always thinking about the sertanejos in Brazil, and they live the exactly same situation. They don't have money, but when they have the conditions, they have food, they have life, they have their land, they live, they can live. And most of the time, the situations to have this life, it's not achieved because there is an industry, a misery industry. People that makes money, for instance, selling water on trucks to these people and this kind of thing. So it's not exactly their lifestyle that make them miserable, but the forces around them helps them or help, not the good word, but force them to this situation. If they had the conditions to just live their lives like they live for 300 years, they will have food and a life to live.
countries in Africa, they are generally smaller, and they were divided, we know, by the colonial powers and all that. But I see, for example, that you are in Tanzania, you are just next to Mozambique, for example, which is a different language, but you're probably going to have some overlap of Swahili language or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For example, when you talk about, we have these 4 different sides of Africa. Basically, it's kind of like 5 by 4. You have, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes.
Oh yeah. You have east, west, south, north, and central. But central is a very small part. So when you're talking about east side of Africa, you have east, west, south, north, and central. But central is a very small part. So when you're talking about east side of Africa, we have an organization called the EAC, East